Hi, Jon Beck, and I'm here today with the 2024 KTM Super Adventure S. And over the past 2 to 3 weeks, I spent a lot of time on this bike, riding up and down California. Today, I'm riding some fun roads around LA, and fortunately, they're very near to my house. We're just off the side of one of those roads, here to talk a little bit about this amazing flagship street-biased adventure bike from KTM.
Looking for more exciting motorcycle travel, editorial, reviews, news, and resources for planning your next motorcycle tour? RoadRUNNER.
As I said, this is KTM's street-biased flagship adventure bike. Now, I've spent a lot of time on the Super Adventure R, which is KTM's off-road biased flagship adventure bike, and the crossover between these two models is actually very surprising. Full disclosure, I've ridden quite a bit of KTM's big twin adventure bikes. I've actually owned a 950, a 990, a 1090, ridden several press bikes, and this is not going to be a comparison between the new and the older models. It's more just to underscore how impressed I am with the Super Adventure S platform. As I'm normally off-road, how well this thing performs obviously on the street and off-road is a little bit beyond what I expected even as a longtime KTM rider. On road, this bike is an absolute weapon, and you don't have to take my word for it. In 2017, for the launch of the Beast 2.0, for the 1290 Super Duke R, KTM's Chris Fillmore took one, raced Pikes Peak for the very first time, and set a new world's record. In 2018, while writing a review on the Super Adventure S of that year, I asked Fillmore what was different about the race bike, the Super Duke R, versus the consumer Super Adventure S, because the motor's the same platform. And basically, he said, Cliff Notes version, not much. What I was told is that the motor of the race bike on Pikes Peak was untouched, a Rottweiler performance intake was added, and then the rest of the bike was basically a bunch of bits you can buy out of the KTM Power Parts catalog that's available to anyone. It's actually insane to think about the fact that the same bike that set a world's record in professional road racing is actually something that's available to buy to any consumer. Fortunately, the Super Adventure S platform is highly tunable, and all the various rider aids can make this bike into something that can be enjoyed and appreciated and ridden safely by riders of almost any level.
Hi, I'm Blanca, and I've been riding along for this bike test. John had several bikes to review this time, so I actually ended up spending more time aboard this KTM 1290 Super Adventure S than he did over the last week. I'm originally from Barcelona, Spain, and I learned how to ride motorcycles in the traffic of Barcelona and the trails of the Pyrenees. My first motorcycle was a CRF 250 Rally, and when I came here to California 2 years ago, the first bike I rode was the KTM 1290 Super Adventure R. So as you can imagine, I was so excited to try this one, the S model. I'm 5'6" and 107 pounds, so the idea of riding such a huge bike seemed almost impossible to me at first, until I discovered that these bikes are actually engineered to be much easier to ride than they might appear. This was my first tour on this bike, the KTM 1290 Super Adventure S, and I have to say that it's a bike that inspires a lot of confidence, even for novice riders like me. One thing I really liked about this bike is that it has 2 seat height positions, which is really good for shorter riders.
The engine you'll find in the 1290 Super Duke R is basically the same one you'll find in this Super Adventure S. The difference is the Super Duke's tuned for more peak performance, whereas this bike is tuned for more all-around riding. They brought the torque down lower into the RPM range to make it roll on smoother if you're canyon carving like we were today, and you're going through corners maybe a gear or two too high. In the hands of a professional racer, this thing is an absolute weapon and definitely rewards diligent shifting. But it also will perform fine. It's a more relaxed ride for the rest of us, even if the speedometer might disagree. 2022 saw one of the more significant updates to the Super Adventure S when adaptive cruise control was added. Not only does this cruise control allow for several different levels of following distance, it also allows for the type of cruise control to be selected, whether it be mellow or sporty. Among the many impressive aspects of the Super Adventure S is how tunable the suspension is. Now, since its inception in 2017, this bike has always had the semi-active suspension system. However, it's constantly seeing behind-the-scenes updates. There's 6 different suspension modes available of auto, sport, street, comfort, off-road, and advanced. Now in any of those modes, you have the option to set the preload to 3 default modes of standard, low, or high. You can also tune the preload to any number between 0 and 100% in 10% increments. Now, as far as I can tell, that preload feature is more of a sag adjustment feature because it seems to only affect the rear. I haven't confirmed that fully. But when you switch to advanced mode, that's when the bike really gets interesting because all of a sudden more options appear on the screen, one of which is the ability to adjust both front and rear damping. So you can adjust the damping of the forks and the damping of the shock independently. And there's 8 different levels which you can set that to. You also have the option in any of these modes to turn on or off the anti-dive feature, which is a huge advantage to anyone who wants to take advantage of the Brembo brake stopping power when canyon carving. One of the biggest surprises to me of the Super Adventure S was how comfortable it was off-road. It really seems to share that same geometry of its off-road cousin in the Super Adventure R. The biggest difference, honestly, the immediate difference you feel is really the 17-19-inch cast wheel set and street bias tires. But the ride modes, it's amazing how much traction it can find in situations where you normally would think street tires would not be able to find traction. This brings up what is probably my favorite feature, or I guess I could say my favorite feature within a feature. So my favorite feature would be rally mode, and within rally mode you scroll down that list and you'll find the slip adjuster. It seems KTM knew that you're definitely going to want to play with the slip adjuster because it's adjustable on the fly using the same plus and minus buttons on the left-hand switch cluster that you'd normally use to adjust cruise control. And when you're in rally mode, the slip adjust number that you've chosen is one of the more prominent pieces of information that's displayed on the TFT. Now, if you go into the rally mode menu, you'll see a graphic icon showing the bike, and as you go through the numbers in the slip adjuster, you'll actually see the angle of the bike sort of pitching out as you go down towards 1. And it's just a graphic, but it really does feel kind of like the angles of the bike you see on the screen or what corresponds to in reality. Rally mode offers a wider range of options than any of the other modes, and the slip adjuster is crazy fun. I first tried that mode on the 790R, and it works essentially the same on this bike, but the ability to throw around something this large, especially with street tires, off-road, and then get back on the highway and ride way faster than you could confidently ride with knobby tires is pretty amazing. One interesting part of this test was that this wasn't just going out and reviewing the bike for a day. I actually incorporated a 1,000-mile tour piece into this as well. And the day before leaving for the tour, I picked up 2 screws in the rear tire. Now, I was able to plug it just fine, but I had the opportunity for safety to swap out for a new rear tire instead of riding a plug tire for 1,000 miles. Issue was a matched set of tires wasn't available, so I ended up with a Mitas front and a Pirelli rear. Now, I know how tuned these traction control systems are, but even with a mismatched set of tires, the system managed to find traction on loose gravel roads, with street tires, of course, and the bike seemed to pitch out just perfectly and smoothly, and it was always based on exactly whatever setting you'd chosen in the slip mode. Doing a deep dive on the electronics package in the 1290 Super Adventure S is worth a video of its own. In the time we have, I can't talk about the whole thing. However, there's a few more features I have to highlight. First, the backlit switches. Extremely cool. It's one of those things that makes me wonder why all bikes don't have this feature, but riding at night you immediately realize this is something that I really like. Second, the way this same switch cluster transforms into a multimedia device is very cool and very intuitive. It actually kind of reminds me of an old click wheel iPod. It's like it corresponds to some sort of generally accepted digital type interface. And third would be the custom function switch on the right-hand switch cluster. It's very easy to assign. It seems like it's assignable to just about any feature on the bike. It's easy to see where someone who ventures off-road would want to assign one of the buttons to ABS functions and the other to ride modes or traction control. Hardcore sport rider, you could set those to independently adjust the damping of the front and rear or quick access to your ride modes. All sorts of things available. Now, it's winter here in California, and one of the features I would really like to assign to the custom function switch would be heated grips. However, this goes to one of my gripes about the bike. There are no heated grips on this bike. They're available as an option, but it does surprise me that, this gets to my gripes about the bike. It surprises me a little bit that a bike at this price point and in this class doesn't come with simple things like heated grips and a heated seat. Now, that's probably, it's not really, as far as gripes go, it's hard for me to find anything functionally about this bike to gripe about. Stuff like that, grips and seat missing, are probably more of a corporate bean counter decision than a functionality decision. But if you're spending $20,000 already, it's very easy to see where you'd pony up for the extra just for features like that. If you wanted to point to other things that someone might be looking for in a bike in this class, it'd be things like an electrically adjustable windscreen. This one doesn't have that, it's manually adjustable. Now I think the adjustment is quite easy, but again, it's something that for a flagship bike, these are things that you might expect to be there that aren't. Also things like there's no USB port. It has the old standard 12-volt style cigarette outlet, which I actually like because a lot of the devices I use need that. So there's pluses and minuses to everything. Now I mentioned there's no USB port. I need to clarify that. There's no USB port outside. There's just the 12-volt outlet here. However, inside this little glove compartment thing here, there is a USB port in there. Aesthetically, the 1290 Super Adventure S might be an eye of the beholder thing. This is just a very different motorcycle, and while it might not be one of my top picks for curb appeal, when I'm riding the thing, I'm looking at the dash and the road ahead. And honestly, from a functional standpoint, it's obviously a blast to ride, but it does make me feel like a better and more confident rider. I hope this brief introduction to KTM's 1290 Super Adventure S has been helpful. I'm looking forward to more time riding this bike as it seems like I'm discovering new things each time I ride it. Thanks for watching. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Be sure to like and subscribe, and hope to see you on the road.